Do animals know they exist? Imagine being given an intelligence test in a sense you barely use. No words, no familiar voices, no smells you recognize. Your entire mind is judged by one question. Do you react correctly to a reflection? That is close to what scientists have asked animals for more than 50 years. A few species respond in ways we recognize. Most do not. But before calling that a failure, consider another possibility. Perhaps the animal did not fail the test. Perhaps the test failed to enter the animal's world. The experiment began in 1970 when psychologist Gordon Gallup placed chimpanzees in front of mirrors. After they became familiar with their reflections, a mark was placed on a part of the face they could not see directly. Some chimpanzees used the mirror to investigate the mark on their own bodies. That was a remarkable result. It suggested that the reflected body was not merely another animal to them, but notice what the experiment actually demonstrated: visual self-recognition under a particular set of conditions. It did not reveal everything happening inside the chimpanzee's mind. This matters because one enormous question has been hiding three smaller ones. Can an animal distinguish its own body from the world around it? Can it monitor what it knows and what it does not know? And does it have subjective experiences, pain that hurts, pleasure that feels good, fear that feels like something from the inside? These abilities may overlap, but they are not identical. Recognizing a face is not the same as reflecting on a thought. And failing to recognize a face does not prove the absence of experience. Every animal lives inside a sensory world shaped by its body. Humans build much of reality from vision and language. Dogs organize astonishing amounts of information through smell. Bats map space through returning sound. Some birds see ultraviolet patterns that are invisible to us. Sharks can detect weak electrical signals produced by living bodies. None of these worlds is a poorer version of ours. Each is a different solution to the same problem: finding food, avoiding danger, choosing companions, and navigating a planet overflowing with information. That is why researchers have tried giving animals tests that speak their own sensory language. In one study, dogs encountered several odor samples: their own scent, unfamiliar scents, and their own scent altered by an added odor. The dogs spent longer investigating the modified version of their own smell. That does not prove that a dog thinks about itself as a character with a personal biography, but it suggests that the dog notices when something associated with its own body has changed. A visual mirror may be almost irrelevant when your identity is written in scent. Once you see that problem, many supposed failures begin to look ambiguous. An animal might recognize itself but have no reason to touch a colored mark. It might treat eye contact as a threat. It might care more about movement, sound, or odor than about appearance. Or it might understand the mirror perfectly and simply find the experiment boring. A test result is behavior, and behavior always has more than one possible explanation. The danger begins when we turn one missing response into a sweeping claim about everything the animal cannot know or feel. Scientists therefore look for other clues. One is uncertainty monitoring, the ability to behave differently when you may be wrong. In experiments, rhesus monkeys learned that they could decline difficult trials instead of risking an incorrect answer. More importantly, they transferred that uncertain response to other familiar tasks without being trained all over again. They used the option most often when the problems were genuinely difficult. This is not a monkey delivering a philosophical speech about doubt. It is something more basic, and perhaps more important: a mind adjusting its decisions according to the limits of its own information. Even here, scientists have to be careful. An animal can learn which situations usually produce a reward without consciously thinking, "I do not know." Clever behavior is not automatically proof of reflection, so researchers change the tasks, remove familiar cues, and ask whether the animal can carry the strategy into a new situation. No single result settles the question. What matters is convergence. different experiments built around different senses and motivations, producing a pattern that becomes increasingly difficult to explain as blind reaction alone. But self-recognition and uncertainty still do not answer the deepest question. Conscious experience is not the same as intelligence. A system can process information without feeling anything, while a creature might feel pain without possessing a human-style concept of itself. The important distinction is between detecting damage and suffering from it, between approaching a reward and enjoying it, between performing a complex action and experiencing the world in which that action occurs. Science cannot observe those feelings directly. It must search for the footprints they leave in behavior, bodies, and brains. Consider the octopus, an animal whose nervous system is organized very differently from ours. In a 2021 experiment, octopuses avoided places where they had experienced an injury and preferred places where they had received pain relief. They also directed grooming behavior toward the affected area, and that behavior changed after local anesthesia. None of this gives us access to an octopus's private experience. But the combination of avoidance, relief-seeking, and targeted care is harder to explain as a simple reflex. It suggests that injury may create a lasting negative state, not merely an automatic response. Or consider an animal far smaller, the bumblebee. Researchers provided bees with small wooden balls that offered no food and were not required to reach a reward. Some bees repeatedly returned to roll them anyway. Younger bees rolled more often, and the animals later preferred a chamber color associated with ball rolling. The researchers argued that the behavior met established criteria for play. That does not prove a bee experiences joy as we do. But an insect repeatedly seeking a useless, apparently rewarding activity forces the boundary of the question into unexpectedly small minds. There is an uncomfortable fact beneath all of this. You have never directly observed another consciousness, including a human one. You see expressions, hear reports, compare behavior, and recognize a body and brain similar to your own. From that evidence, you infer that somebody is home. With animals, the inference becomes harder because their bodies, senses, and sometimes their nervous systems are profoundly different. Yet difference is not emptiness. The scientific task is to combine many imperfect clues without demanding that another species imitate a human before we take its experience seriously. Perhaps the mistake is imagining minds as a ladder, with humans at the top and every other species arranged below. The evidence looks more like a mosaic. One animal may have extraordinary memory but limited visual self-recognition. Another may track uncertainty but lack anything resembling language. A third may experience pain, curiosity, or play while having no abstract story about who it is. Evolution does not need to build every mind from the same blueprint. It only needs workable abilities, assembled in combinations that help each creature survive in its own world. In 2024, scientists and philosophers announced the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness. It stated that there is strong scientific support for conscious experience in other mammals and birds, and at least a realistic possibility in all vertebrates and many invertebrates, including cephalopods, decapod crustaceans, and insects. The wording is deliberately cautious. A realistic possibility is not certainty, but it is also not ignorance. It means the evidence has crossed a threshold where dismissing the possibility is no longer the neutral or scientifically careful position. That changes the moral calculation. If we underestimate an animal's inner life, suffering can remain invisible simply because it arrives in a form we failed to recognize. If we overestimate it, we may exercise more caution than was strictly necessary. Those errors do not carry equal consequences. This does not produce an easy rule for farms, laboratories, oceans, homes, or ecosystems. It produces a responsibility. When the evidence is uncertain but the possible harm is enormous, uncertainty should make us more attentive, not less. Lack of perfect proof is not evidence that nothing matters. So, do animals know they exist? Some may recognize their bodies. Some appear to monitor their uncertainty. Many may experience the world without ever forming the sentence, "I am alive." But perhaps that sentence was always the wrong standard. A mirror can tell us whether an animal understands a reflection. It cannot measure every form a self might take. The better question is not whether another creature can prove its mind by becoming more like us. It is whether we can become perceptive enough to recognize a mind that remains completely itself. Animals may not have been silent. We may have been listening in the wrong language.